Portions of the program may be unsuitable for younger or more sensitive viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
You're a Negro.
No.
I am your teacher. You are a Negro.
No.
Suppose I threatened to beat you. What would you say? Aren't you a Negro now?
No.
What are you?
I'm black and beautiful.
What is your nationality?
My nationality is Afro-American.
Suppose I had some money in my pocket. Suppose I gave you $1 to say that you're an American Negro. This is money now. Money talks. Money talks. This dollar. And if you don't say it, you don't get it. You're an American Negro, aren't you?
No.
You won't have any money. You know you need money, don't you?
Yes.
You need money to live, don't you?
Yes.
All right. All you have to say, Leon, is that you're an American Negro.
Hey, how's y'all doing, everybody? Again, this is your host, the most hated show in the black corner of YouTube. Once again, we are back in the business after being knocked out for as many times as we have. Those who have been keeping count of the injuries, we want to apologize. But again, unforeseen occurrences befall us all, as they say. So, Mr. Blows Your Minds is coming with another thought-provoking topic. First and foremost, I want to say what's good to the fam that should be happy to catch these, let's say, tape delay or let's say not live settings, right? We're going to do this for a while till we can get back ourselves into it. Hopefully that you have got some kind of notifications that got you to come over here. Again, I want to apologize for not being back after I have building myself up. You know, things always keep happening, but I want to say what's good to you and yours. Passerby, you happen to pass by, this is the most hated show in the black corner of the internet. Been in the business for so long to the fact that it doesn't make sense that you can't say that a person can't get 100 views and been in the business for 9 years. You better ask yourself, what is it that he's talking about over here that the system says they don't want to be heard? So since you have clicked on the video, maybe it's due to the thumbnail or something like that, have to go down the aisle, see some things that make you feel some kind of way. Remember, the motto of my show is the truth. Don't need no partner, right? No partner. So let me show you what today's topic is going to be about. As you've seen that thumbnail there, right? Today's date is March 24th, 2021. The imposition of a global agreement. Let me say that again. The imposition of a global agreement, right? Imposition, man. What are you talking about, Mr. Blows Your Mind? You know, you always come with some things. Sometimes we're not quite understanding what you're saying there. So, you know, Mr. Blows Your Mind is going to show you what I'm talking about as we go along. Because so much has happened since the forced hiatus I had to endure. You know how it goes, y'all. You know, people out here saying that we're attacking, and other people are attacking them, but mum's the word, and it just seems to be stories that have an underline that seems to be showing exactly as you've seen on your screen there, right? And we're going to get into that image, what you've seen, and let me give you a little bit of the background to that before we get into that. Because you know how it goes, right? You know a lot of people, they don't like it, you know, but we got to do it anyway, right? So go ahead and show that for everybody on there, right? There's a class, again, well, let's take this back to 1911. They say Booker T. Washington is quoted as saying this, right? There's a class of colored people who make a business of keeping the troubles, the wrongs, and the hardships of the Negro race before the public. Having learned that they are able to make a living out of their troubles, they have grown into the settled habits of advertising their wrongs, partly because they want sympathy, partly because it pays. Some of these people do not want the Negro to lose his grievances because they do not want to lose their jobs, right? You know, that's how some people feel. Oh, y'all out here talking about these things. There is no racism. It's a figure of imagination. It's just something that doesn't exist that we will not recognize. But no matter how you keep saying that, the truth of the matter is the elephant is always in the room. And when it brings itself, I guess I have to put it this way. They say elephant in the room. I guess you have to say when Snuffleupagus is revealed, do you believe it? Big Bird been telling you. I know that's some kiddie shit, but you know, for some people, you know, you got to go basic. And all the people who was too highly educated, maybe sometimes that's probably what the problem is. You might be too much educated, and somehow you done missed the little things. But anyway, Snuffleupagus is real because Big Bird been telling you it, but the problem is you haven't seen it. Well, what are you talking about, Mr. Blow? Well, there's been a lot of things that's been out here, but before I get into that, let me go ahead and break down, because again, I gave you something there that I want to make sure that before we go any further, that it is understood what you see. Now again, the title for today's news report is called The Imposition of a Global Agreement. Now, when you talk about imposition, you might be wondering, well, what do you mean by that, Mr. Blows Your Mind? Because, I'm not so literate to all the words, and sometimes you come over here and you give me words that maybe I don't know all the full understandings of it. So anyway, let me go ahead and tell you a little bit. Now, when you talk about imposition, what you're saying is, like on your screen, the infliction of a global agreement, the laying on of a global agreement, the application of a global agreement, the charging of a global agreement, the burdening of a global agreement. The, let's say, levying of a global agreement. The tax of a global agreement. The encumbrance of a global agreement. The requirement of a global agreement. The toll, the tithe, the tariff, the fine, the penalty of a global agreement. Right? So accordingly, that image that you see on there is an image that is part of insignia used to give a highest honor to those primarily of the British Crown. It's called Auspicus or Auspicum Melioris Alvi. Let me say that again. Auspicus Melioris Alvi. Meaning the motto of that image is of a better age. Of a better age. As you see on your screen there, right? You see an individual have his foot on top. Seems to be a man, a black man. And we're going to talk about the other individual that you see in there, that he's going to say some things for those who may not have heard. But let's look at this Auspicum Melioris Alvi, right? Now, according to this depiction here, they say it roots in the high Renaissance in the Baroque era, for those who know about that, right? It dates back to about 1505. The artist Raphael was first painted Saint Michael, what they say is vanquishing Satan, okay? As representing Saint Michael, and he is vanquishing Satan. Now, who is Michael, as you see, and who is Satan? And according to, again, when this first one that they did, it was going back to 1505. It was on the back of a drawboard before revisiting it. Then they retouched it up later again. Then it got commissioned by the behest of Pope Leo X. And that was made by Guido Reni. And then in 1636, they revamped it once again, and it was commissioned by, they say, by the Barini family, right? The Barberini family, right? Who, for the Church of Santa Maria della Consigno de Cappuccino. Now, you say that 5 times fast if you can, but I did say it for you once. Now, this image, some people have stated and said that, well, this image is just a depiction. It's just an image. It's just conquering Satan. There's nothing wrong with this. Well, maybe you would say there's nothing wrong with it. It's only because it's depicting, right? It seems to be depicting something that some of us can relate. And maybe it has a long, as again, it's a global understanding by all, right? Maybe it's a global understanding by all. And maybe we just don't understand it, right? So here it is, you have a depiction of a black Satan under the foot of white Saint Michael. Now, accordingly, when you see this, again, maybe I'll show you some of the images that they have out there, right? Go ahead and show that for us, sir. Thank you. So you see, it was the British Association of Social Workers, which is the BASW, has written to the royal family urging it to change the imagery on one of Britain's highest honors. Okay? You see that there? You see that that is on the, they say, the highest honor in their land, awarded for those who are honored with that. So you can get an even closer look of it, as you see there, right? And you know, so as you see, so here it is again. This is considered what they say, an example of the overt remnant of Britain's colonial legacy being commemorated, right? Remember what the motto is, of a better age. This is depicting a better age when someone is on top while the other one is on the bottom. I think it is said in is it Genesis 3:15, for those who are familiar with that scripture, when it talks about bruising on the head and bruising on the heel, right? Right? Satan, right, bruise the chosen one on the heel while he'll be bruising him on the head. So I guess it's kind of depicting that in some way or another. And so they talk about how the recipient of the order, it's a number of the people who are recipients of this award, in fact, were black people. Right? Ranging from, they talk about Papua New Guinea and to Barbados, right? And they also say that the fact that when you think about the color of Satan itself is not entirely consistent, having historically ranged, they say that Satan was considered white and even supposedly had been green. But this one here and what they displayed shows something entirely different. But then, as you've seen, they said they complained, they called themselves changing it so it didn't look as bad, right? But that's all it really kind of depicts. It's the same thing. That's something. What's the boy, man? Why would you show that? This is not a tradition in this country. This is not something that's racial. Yeah, maybe it's not. It's not. But as you seen in that depiction there, right? What you see, no, right, not that one, go back to that other one, right? Go back to that one, right? Isn't that kind of like the same thing? Isn't that the same thing? Is that like that the same thing? Look at that, right? It's kind of like the same thing. It's not, actual factual that, but it still kind of represents that, even though it may be a traditional way of honoring somebody, but then you see he seems to be enjoying that he is hoisted on the heads of the black of those who he is, you understand, conquered, right? And then as we are now turning and getting to that moment, this is in the news, right? And I think they're the 14, right? I think they got all the jurors now. But that depiction goes to what has been recently dealing with when we say this, right? We all seen that went around the globe and made his, rounds, and people and their feelings and emotions and movements and all kinds of things, and has a possibility of rearing itself once again. Because why? Well, maybe something is to be, taking a note for all this here, right? Come on, Mr. Blow Your Mind. Now, why would you say, come on, man? This is not what it is. You're just, you're looking for things. You know how some people say, you're looking for stuff. It's not even there. You're making these things up. Why would you do that? Why do you need to do that? It's not necessary. All right, fine. It's not really necessary, right? It's not really necessary because, let's just say, right? Do black devils, or have the term black devil, go ahead, switch that up on there. We got enough of that. That's enough there. Yeah, that doesn't seem enough of that. Okay. Right? So let's just see if there's any significance in history that points to if that depiction that we see has any relevance today. So there was a World War unit, right, that became known as the Fighting Black Devils. Have you ever heard of that before? The Fighting Black Devils of World War I, right? Some of y'all might have heard of this before. And this is the time when it was declared on Germany, right? War was declared on Germany. And what they did is it was called the 8th Illinois National Guard Regiment. They served together on the Mexican border, and until disbanded in Quincy, all-black National Guard company. It was an all-black National Guard company. Some of the men that were on there, name was Ben Bryson, John Butler, Lloyd Longress, Dwayne Carpenter, William Nichols, Henry Gay, and Mason Perkins. Now, this Quincy company, they said they existed between June of 1902 through about April 15 of 1915, and they said it was part of the 8th Illinois National Guard Infantry. It was the only regiment of colored militiamen in the United States. Let me say that again. This company, this Quincy company, originally was the 8th Illinois National Guard Regiment, became the Quincy Company, and then they had existed between 1902 through April 15th of 1915. And they said they were part of this 8th Illinois National Guard Infantry, which again was the only black regiment militia men in the United States. Okay? And the locale that these two additional companies that came is from Chicago, resulted in the company's elimination. Okay? Now, they organized in 1895. 8th Illinois was first mustered into federal service for the Spanish-American War. But June 30th to October 27, 1916, the regiment was federalized, saw service along the Mexican border, with the United States entry into World War I on April 1917. The all-black Illinoisans was once again called to active duty on July 25th. Okay? Now here it is. This anomaly. The only regiment in the entire United States. The only black regiment. Huh? Then they say completely. Right? Now, what made them, well, they were completely black. Let me scratch that. They were completely black. Okay? Now, what made this anomaly is because almost to complete, this regiment was full of black officers from the highest rank of colonel to the lowest rank of corporals. This was all black. Okay? So what happened is they got incorporated into the American Expeditionary Forces, the AEF, I think is what they call it, the AEF, right? And then they were sent to France in April 1918. Now this 8th was redesigned and they changed their name from, remember there was the 8th Illinois, right? Part of the Quincy, right? And so forth. But then they turned into the 370 Infantry. Then they were signed to the 93rd Division. So now what they're doing is kind of, mixing them up, right? You know how they do. We were colored, Negroes, blacks, African Americans. You know how to do us, right? So anyway. So we see that the United States government had organized 2 divisions of black soldiers for the war, right? They organized 2 divisions. You had the 92nd, that was, they say, of the time was mostly made up of draftees who they drafted into, and then had the 93rd, who was comprised of the National Guard units, primarily of who we were talking about, of the 8th Illinois. Now, they say during World War I, they said there was about 367,000 African-American soldiers who served in the armed forces. Let me say that again. During World War I, 367,000 African-American soldiers served in the armed forces. Now, they say the military, who restricted most black soldiers to labor battalions, were then what they did as some of the work that they did, what they had them do instead of them going out there to fight. Those who remember, whoever seen the movie Soldier Story, remember that? The niggas are going to fight Hitler. Niggas are going to fight Hitler. Remember that? They was all happy because they couldn't get themselves in the war. They is soldiers, but they out there, as they were doing, having them unload the ships, build roads, dig trenches, right? Do the menial hands work, right? Right? And I'm going to see how that, again, with that depiction, right? And how all that's going to tie into everything that we're going to talk about, or I'm going to talk about. Now, they always say, well, despite being prejudiced of this time, but there was 40,000 African Americans who saw combat. Now, remember, there was 367,000 who were in there, but they say only 40,000 of them saw combat. And by the end of the war, they said there was 1,400 black men had been commissioned officers. Okay, by the time the end of the war, out of the 40,000 who saw combat, 1,400 of them became commissioned officers. So this 370th Division or regiment arrived in France, and they said, I think it was late 1918, right? So they went through a training period, and then the regiment on, they say, June 21st. Now, June 21st, like summer, right? The first day of summer, right? So they sent them to a quiet sector. They said a quiet sector in the front, right, of the war. But there was really no action. So they wanted to be able to use them and say, they was there, right? Okay. So what happened, this is what happens. So the Germans brought the French army to a point of desperation. This is what they say. They brought them to a point of desperation. So here they were needing men to shore up to deplete the divisions, right? But French went to their general, and again, the commander was asking for troops. And so who did they request? why don't you send up that 93rd Regiment up there? Oh, the 93rd? So they sent the 93rd up there to France. Now, remember all that changing? They was from the 8th Illinois, right, to the 370. Then they changed it to the 93rd, and then when they become French, guess what they happen now? Now they had to become French, the French army, huh? They turned over all their American equipment and start taking the French rifles and pistols and helmets and machine guns and the horses and all that, right? And they even was eating croissants and all that other French wee food, right? So now here was this 93rd Regiment were distinguished, they say, throughout the whole French army. I wonder what it was that made them so distinguished out of all the Frenchies they was amongst, right? So this 370 fought with 3 different French divisions. So what they did is they divided them up. It's kind of like when you look at history, when you look at NBA, and you go back in the day with the George Mikan and all that stuff, when they talk about how cold Muggs was. We're not going to say they can't hoop. We ain't gonna say you couldn't hoop. It's just like, eating chicken with just plain right out the cook with no seasoned salt or nothing. It's chicken. But when you put that seasoned salt, that salt on there, right, it puts some flavor to it, right? And it changes the whole taste, right? So that's what ended up happening, right? So we're going to take these here that nobody else ain't got in none of their divisions, and we're going to break them up and put them in our regiment. Okay, so that's what ended up happening, right? And so on April 16th, they called it Company L. They got detached from the 370 and assigned to the French battalions. No sooner as they arrived, orders were issued for them to attack. They couldn't get there. As soon as they got there, they thought maybe they're going, no, you get out there. We need you now. So here they were going out there while the French artillery was supporting their attack. So the men that went over the hill, the German initials, guess when they first seen it, like, what the is this, right? So they were light firing at them. And then what happened is they started increasing. Okay, I guess we're going to shoot them, right? So it got to the point that the company, now here this is, they got them in the middle, French on the other side, and the Germans on the other side. So guess what happened? The black company sitting in the damn middle while everybody's shooting, and they sitting in the damn middle. Ain't that something? Right? Ain't that something? That's how they had them, right? So they had them sit their ass up in the middle. And so here they was caught with this. Low ammunition, ain't got no water, no food, can't move in a country they don't know nothing about. So they were stuck. So they started asking for volunteers to go up there to bring them the needed supplies. You know who they went up there? They got some other brothers, right? Other brothers went up there making their way to get the supplies and dump. So they found one, right? They had found the brother that went up there. His name was Robinson, okay? And so he succeeded loading up the wagons and headed back there. And even though he was not stopped by the terrific hail of shells and machine gun bullets that killed the horses, but the brother got there and did what he had to do. And guess what ended up happening, y'all? How you think they won that damn war, right? This Company L pushed the Germans back a few yards at a time. Soon the Germans began calling them what? The Black Devils. And the nickname stuck. So the 370 infantry became known as the Fighting Black Devils. Take a break. Let's take a break and be right back. Check this out, y'all. All right, I think we are back, right? We back? Yeah, we back, right? Okay. So we're going to get on with that thing, because remember, that was what is being depicted, right? St. Michael was on the neck of the black devil. Ain't that something, huh? No matter what we do, we always seem to be depicted in the light that if our contributions, what other people have benefited from it, they always seem to find a way. We can understand the Germans' position, right, and calling us the black devils and all that other stuff. And, you know, they say that name stuck, that the homeland that we own was calling the black devils, right? Well, let's see something about these black devils. What is it about? Why did everybody see us in the light as the worst of the worst? What is it about us, right? You think they're ever going to tell you? Not going to tell you, right? They ain't in the job to tell you this, right? So I had seen this for those who might have said, we ready to say that yet? Are we ready? Yeah, go there. Yeah, let's go there. Well, yeah, go there because wait a minute, what you supposed to do something with that? I don't know if you did you do that right? I think you did that right. Yeah, I think you did that right. Okay. Okay. I think you did that right. Okay. So here we are, the black devils again. People don't want to actually acknowledge the fact that of our existence and what we, contributed, and always deeming us in a light that seems to be, not good. Right? It's never good, right? Never good enough, right? So let me show you this here, right? You ready to show that, sir? Yeah, because I think we had to go. I think you got to go there. Yeah, you're gonna have to. Yeah, go there. Yeah, you should. Yeah, because we do that one afterwards. Told y'all I got to help one in the wine for a technician, somebody looking for one. We'll get it right, right? Yeah, you can come back later and do that one. Okay. All right, so yeah, take that down, take that. Okay. You still ain't ready? Okay, there you go. Okay. Now, no, you want to do that one? Yeah, you're doing the wrong one. That's the wrong one. I'm glad you didn't put it up there. Okay, do the right one. Yeah, do that one. Okay, there you go. You got it. All right, sorry for that. Being slow over here. So anyway, I had seen this article for those of you. Some of y'all didn't see this, right? Did y'all hear about this? Condemning the sun helped to cool the earth. Bill Gates wants to spray millions of tons of chalk into the stratosphere to reflect sunlight and slow global warming. But critics fear it could be disastrous. Let me say that again. Condemning the sun helped to cool the earth. Bill Gates wants to spray millions of tons of chalk into the stratosphere to reflect sunlight and slow global warming. But critics fear it could be disastrous. Can you believe that? That somebody is sitting here, right? Matter of fact, who is that somebody, right? We know who the somebody is. Hey, this cat to be somebody. When you look at his story, he got a lot of pull for some things that he shouldn't be having read, right? Show the cat, man. Go on, show the cat. You know who the cat is, right? Right? You know what I'm saying? You got enough money to, living, eating, paying bills. That's nothing. I got to find other things to get myself involved into. But let's go ahead and see what's being said here, right? Let's go back in here, right? Now, accordingly, they say there was a first test of a project that they had backed to spray millions of tons of chalk into the stratosphere, right? So they're going to take this chalk, they're going to put it over into the atmosphere in the sky, right? And what they want to do is they want to attempt to dim, they say dim, dim the sun? You know, like having a light switch in your house, instead of just clicking on and off, you have turn it down, dim it, dim the lights, right? Okay. And by this dimming the light, they say it should cool the earth. Cool the earth down by dimming it with the sun. And they supposedly got this scheduled to be happening in June. Let me say that again for those who in the back who didn't hear me. You back there playing. Your man here, right? Your man right there said that he and some other folks said that they got a plan to spray millions of tons of chalk into the stratosphere to dim the sun and cool the earth. Now, they got the Harvard University experts said they were going to be sending large balloons 12 miles above. Now, they're going to do this in Sweden, right? They're going to do this over in Sweden, right? A town they say, I think it's called Kiruna, right? That's Kiruna in Sweden. And they said they're going to drop about 2 kilograms of chalk dust into the stratosphere. Now, they estimate that this is going to cost about $3 million. But, you know, again, you know, eating, drinking, paying rent, mortgage, traveling, that, you know what I'm saying? That's pocket change, right? So since I got all this, let me get into some other things, right? And you know he's in a lot of stuff, right? So he's not only in there, supposed to be some other billionaires as well, but they don't name who those are. And they say this chalk is supposed to have deflect portion, not the entirety, portion of the sun's radiation. Let me say that again. What they want to do is take this chalk dust so it can deflect portions of the sun radiation. Well, that radiation must be fucking with somebody that we got to do something about it, right? Well, after all that sunscreen, it ain't working? Okay, but anyway. And so what they want to do with all this sun dust is stopping it from hitting the surface so that somehow they believe this is going to cool the planet. Can you believe that, man? Like I say, you got all this money, but, you know, this is a big issue, right? They talk about global warming, right? So we got to understand who this global warming is against. So, you know, you have, you know, when you're young, brand new, still got that brand new car smell, and people talking about, oh, well, global warming. Not everything that is the so-called is universal has anything to do with you. It might be some other things, because again, let's look at the simple fact of that image. You want to show that image one more again? Go back one more again. Remember this image here, right? That image, right? So in a sense, since they're using angelic on the devil, so this must be things that are spiritual. Let me say that again. These things that are fighting be unbeknownst to many of us is spiritual, right? So they being spiritual, so that means the things that you see tangible and physical, those are not the things, they got that under control, but the things that are spiritual seem to be the things that they're now trying to dwarf off, right? Okay. Now they said this idea of them doing this came from what they had said. Let me say this again. No, I'll say this. Okay. Now this idea about this taking this chalk, a lot of people was criticizing this, right? Since the time they started thinking about it, it was like, hey man, wait a minute, we're gonna take chalk. You know, the niggas gonna laugh at us. oh, wait a minute, shit, this is going to work, right? Now, there's a lot of ways you can look at them putting that chalk up in there. Again, because you know, everybody take everything that somebody say scientific and all that stuff, that everything they say is honest and true, and you know all the ins and outs. Okay. So anyway, here they is doing some geoengineering. Many people are terrified by the idea of could be the cause and effects, right? Right? There's cause and effects to everything, right? Okay. And so even the experts, they're warning and saying this unusual technique, they know can be disastrous for weather systems in ways that they can't even predict. Let me say that again. Now remember, they got this schedule to come up for June. We already April, we in March going into April, so we're a couple months away. So again, this geoengineering, that they're going to use this technique, this unusual technique, are not understanding or don't care about, or maybe saying the end will justify the means that could be the disastrous for the weather systems around the world, that none of them can predict what might be the ins and outs that may happen, right? Now, just because this is backed by a whole bunch of private donors and billionaires who got the money, don't necessarily mean that, again, you remember the old commercial used to come on with the Indian was sitting there, then took all the land, he had 110 in his eye, and he was like, I didn't vote for that, right? The Indians say, I ain't vote for all this. The way we live was fine. Here's you is coming with all this industrialism, and now look at everything, right? All right, so here he is now trying to come back, and you're trying to cure what you cause, right? So again, this mission, they got it set up to be in Sweden, right? And later on, you're going to find out Sweden, and why Sweden, because Sweden fits into something that, again, maybe you might have known, but again, just watching here on Black Minds News Report, you will know why maybe they chose Sweden. I'm not saying that's why, but I'm going to just say, by it going to be what I'm going to talk about later, probably is the reason why, right? So again, they got this schedule for to be at the end of, they say the end of summer, but it's not really the end of summer. Really at the beginning, when you talk about June 21st is the beginning of summer, correct? Am I right or am I wrong, right? So let's look at some of the stuff that they showed on this, right? You see that right there, right? I'll give you a little diagram of what the possibilities of it is, right? They got the balloon will lift about, they say 1,300 pounds of equipment up to about 12 miles into the stratosphere, right? Right? So, and then two, they said they're going to be about more than 4 pounds of chalk is released into the atmosphere. Only 4 pounds? You know what I'm saying? I mean, do you think about the school chalk, the chalk, you know what I'm saying? This man, how much? He's about 1,300 pounds of equipment, okay, to get 4 pounds of chalk. That's got to be, 4 pounds got to be a lot too, though, but I guess, right? And so when they say they're going to release it into the atmosphere, 3, a plume of dust, a few miles wide from the chalk particles. See, they're showing you going to be that. And then 4 shows the equipment will study the ways the chalk interacts with the atmosphere as it falls back to Earth. All right, so they want to see, by putting that all out there, is it going to create some kind of, I guess some kind of shade, right? I guess they're going to create some kind of shade with that, right? And so they show here some of the equipment and stuff that they're showing, right? That they're going to take for them to do it. Now, again, like I say, this equipment, as technical as it may be, according to what they tell us, there's a hot air balloon and, going to go up in the sky. But, they got money. Like I said, they got pocket change. They can do all kinds of stuff when you got that kind of money to really invest in things that's of importance to them. And this what this show here is going to show, some of the things that people have an interest in that we may not be knowing. But again, you have someone on the watchtower who observes and then comes back and does a report. Now, those of you who are new, you better get over here and you better subscribe and like and share these videos over here, right? Because that's what we do over here. We are watchmen on the tower, right? So So again, as I said, these test balloons will lift about 600 kilograms of scientific equipment 12 miles above the surface of the Arctic town. And they believe if everything goes well, they say 2 kilograms of dust will be released. Then they say this will, again, they say create some kind of plume, dust plume, over several kilometers in length. But they said it's not large enough to have an effect on the intensity of the sun rays hitting the earth, right? Of course. You can't block out the sun entirely, right? You actually really think you can block the sun out in its entirety? Impossible. Now, I remember I was reading some time back, maybe a year and a half ago. You know, I've been doing news here since 2012, but again, you couldn't tell based on my view count. But there's stories that talked about how they had made this artificial sun. I was like, well, where you gonna put this artificial sun? Because are you doing things to try to destroy the sun? Now, again, remember I talked about cause and effect. The cause is, okay, let's say if they can get what they want. Let's say you can get the dimming of the sun, right? You can get the dimming of the sun. But what's good for one goose ain't good for the other. Because one people is people of the sun and another people having problems with the sun. There's an off balance. Somebody gonna win and somebody gonna lose, right? Or your contribution, what you think, just don't matter. Right? Now, according to how they sat down and they contemplate how this whole operation could work, you know, what they did is they fed into the computer models and they try to determine what could happen. Now, use the computer to do what reality, right? And the computer simulated, modulated, and all that stuff to, you know, artificially create it and try to give you some kind of summation to the end results. Gonna be entirely different once they get into reality. Because whatever goes wrong, you ain't finna be able to stop that, right? Okay. Now, they believe that this determining of this was, they say that what the true effects, right? Now, you have people who are in opposition to this. They say, okay, you know, this current model that you're using for this computer and all that seems optimistic, right? You know what I'm saying? And you're using this machine and talking about the techniques, all that shit looks attractive, huh? But what happens when you put tons of dust and plume and put that many hundreds of kilograms and put that shit up in the air, huh? And trying to create this massive sunshade, huh? What gonna happen? Only time gonna be able to tell, right? Only time. So they got another diagram there, as you can see, right? They got another diagram. And then again, this is solar geoengineering, right? And they're showing some diagrams of things, how they, you know, it's a computer module, the model, how they want to go ahead and do this. Now, according, you know, how you plan on a computer is different from the realities. Because, you know, it seems innocent. It seems that chalk is, you know, non-life threatening and all that stuff. It seems that way, right? But we won't know. You don't know. But, you know, if you're desperate and you're trying to make some attempts to make some, you know, some things happen, I guess, you know, cause and effect is the last thing. We just need the end results at whose expenses, right? Right? And so they talk about the number of geoengineering theories being proposed. Shiny, they want to say, well, we can have shinier crops, building to reflect more sunlight, micro bubbles in the ocean, removing the serious clouds, right? Again, think about that. You might be trying to do something, again, that's beneficial for people who that is having detriment to. But natural, has a natural equilibrium that needs not to be adjusted by that who don't understand all the ins and outs. You know, it's kind of like let's say pharmaceuticals, right? They create certain medications that's supposed to help with your ailment. But then they have a commercial that'll go about 2-3 minutes about side effects and everything else that go with it, because they just don't remedy just that. But isn't it funny that when you, like somebody who's a herbalist and things like that, and they tell you certain things to take, those things you don't have no side effects. It's just nature doing what that thing does. So here is, again, imperfect man thinking that he has the answer to a problem that's part of nature. Yes, man. Think about that, right? He wants to reflect some of the sun rays. He wants the heat back into space where the heat supposed to belong here on the planet. He wants the heat to go back into, so because it's space and the heat goes back, but that heat wasn't part of the natural equilibrium of the creator who made it, so maybe that heat ain't supposed to be there. And obviously you must can't get in there because they say you got a threshold anyway, right? So okay, this is you again. You got money. We're gonna try some things to try to figure it out. Okay, we get that. Okay. And so they said dimming these, right, and the parts of the sun that will get through, right, protecting Earth from ravages of climate warming. This is the whole purpose. They saying they want to do this because it may help to stop the climate warming. Is it just the sun that's causing climate warming? Is it really just the sun? Or is it all the other things that have been created in time? And you have Chernobyl, right? They was burying all that nuclear waste in the ground up there. Then you have in Fukushima. Then you got, what I'm saying? You had, all kinds of nuclear bombs and all, right? This stuff was, you knew was already dangerous when you were playing with it. So once you release it and, bombed up other people and Scud missiles and all that, but those particles are still in the atmosphere, the stratosphere. They ain't going nowhere because ain't nowhere for it to go. You get what I'm saying? So anyway, now according to those from this Harvard lab, they said this project, they said the strategy would only be deployed in desperation to stop parts of the planet becoming uninhabitable, right? Now, you saying you only deploy this if you're desperate, but you already got it scheduled for June 6th. So desperation is already there. So you passed that because you're telling now, you're saying, desperation, we would only do it, but you got it scheduled for June to happen. So they're already desperate, y'all. They're already desperate because, it's getting to a point where they say that the planet becoming uninhabitable. Is that for everybody? Now, everybody wants to help everybody. Nothing wrong with that. But not everybody's problem is the same as yours. We all can be, let's say, having some, maledictions, right? Maladies. We got some illnesses, right? But we being affected differently. We might have the same thing, but we might be affected differently. So uninhabitable, is that for all of us or is that for certain people, right? And so they believe that without any effects to stop the climate change, curb what they say the greenhouse gases and emissions and the fossil oil. You talking about that emission, boy, they stealing the shit out them catalytic converters, ain't they? Shit, you know what I'm saying? You want a quick $1 million? Find a way to stop stealing catalytic converters and sell that to everybody, and you can make some money, right? Catalytic converter and emissions, you know what I'm saying? You know how you can't pass the damn emission until you go get you a brand new catalytic converter, right? And inside that catalytic converter got some precious metals. This is why they stealing that shit, because the precious metal is worth more than the, what is it, about $200 some for a catalytic converter? Maybe more than that now, right? So, but they got some precious metal, and the combine of that, That's why they out here stealing them catalytic converters, right, for the emissions. But, you know, this gas emission is fucking up the atmosphere too, right? They talk about fossil fuel and other pollutants, right? And they believe that parts of the world will be up to 10 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than it is today. Right? Ain't that something, huh? Think about that, right? This climate engineering, which is another name of just calling it climate intervention, right? When they refer to as geoengineering, again, it's the deliberate and large-scale intervention in the Earth climate system, right? So this is them trying to fight a way against the natural response to the Earth to what. So a lot of people like to speak French. We did this. We are responsible. No, we didn't do shit. It is they who done this shit. We just have been pawns in the game, right? You, the movers and the shakers, the ones who got all the damn money to do the shit that you do. This ain't our problem. This your problem. But we have to bear the consequences of the actions of what have been done. Am I right or am I wrong, right? Right, am I wrong, right? Okay. So, you know, again, this deliberate large-scale intervention in the Earth climate system. Again, this climate engineering against this solar radiation management. This is what they're trying to do. Have some management to this radiation that is coming with this carbon dioxide, trying to remove it from the damn sky, right? And so with this solar radiation, which is them sun rays they were talking about, trying to offset that, so somehow they believe warming effects of the greenhouse gases and reflecting more of the solar radiation. That's why they talking about putting it back in the damn space. And so carbon dioxide removal is just basically them trying to do the carbon dioxide gases, which is the CO2, right? Man, ain't that something? Trying to remove all this shit from the atmosphere, sequestering it for a long period of time. Huh? Really? So here it is. Let's say if you can gather it and hold it, but you can't get rid of it. It's indestructible. Once you create it, you can't get rid of it. It's kind of like they were saying about plastic and a lot of other things that, you know, shit that sound good to do your packaging and all this shit, but the shit has accumulated. So you got fields and mounds and shit it's indestructible. Can't do nothing with it. Burying it is just like a kid, say, go in there and clean your damn room. He want to go outside. He go in there and he just hiding shit all up under the bed and, you know, and he putting plates and shit under the couch. I'm done. Yeah, okay. Then you go in there, sit on the couch and shit a fucking plate, cup, under the bed. Huh? You ain't clean shit. You just trying to hide shit. Same shit here, right? Same ass shit. Right? It's the same shit. So, you know, and they talking about all this research into solar radiation management, right? Consists of computer modeling and laboratory tests. You can do all the laboratory and computer modulating you want. This is nature. This is cause and effect. That who created all that and you trying to offset that, you're offsetting things that you don't have no end results other than to that the people will have to go through whatever you cause. We will all be affected by it, right? But, you know, who am I, right? I'm just a reporter. I'm just a black journalist speaking on these things, right? And so when you think about all these removal techniques that they have been trying, matter of fact, I think there was a paper back in 2014 where they found that climate engineering subcategories, the subcategories, when they talk about the three for the carbon dioxide removal techniques, they talk about afforestation. They talk about ocean from iron fertilization. They talk about ocean alkalization, right? Because they talk about even the ocean is upwelling, right? But with all that they done to try to clean the ocean up and, you know, alkaline and all that good stuff, but when it comes to this solar radiation, this solar radiation and this management was able to return global average temperature to pre-industrial levels, right? That's as far as you can get with that. You can take it back to industrial levels, right? Before you start building all them factories, putting all that toxic pollutant in the air. No, it's what Gordon Gekko say? Greed is good. But what's the effect to greed? What is the effect to greed? So here they say that the substantial agreement among scientists that climate engineering cannot substitute for climate change mitigation, like reducing greenhouse gas emissions. That all types of measures for addressing climate change have economic, political, and physical limitations, right? Oh, don't tell them that. Don't you say, they can't say that we're limited. We have, we made the, what was it called? Unsinkable. We made that, but that shit sank, didn't it? Right? Here you go again. Well, okay, we moving on. We're going to keep going on with this, right? And so, these various types of risk, and most climate engineering approaches is at an early stage. Now, here it is their understanding needs to improve to judge their adequacy and feasibility. They got to understand, you don't got the game down pat. There's many people who would like to say science and what believe all that shit is theory at best. They don't know the ins and outs. And so what caused here may be affect somewhere else, but again, at whose expense, right? And so again, the experts and major reports advise against relying on climate engineering techniques as a main solution to global warming. Now the experts saying that, right? Reports they've been writing about it. Because the large uncertainties over effectiveness and side effects and unforeseen consequences, the unforeseen consequences. Remember I said that about myself. That's why I've been gone for those 2 weeks. The unforeseen occurrences happen will knock me out of the game. I've been trying to get back. This is the best what I can do for the time being. You want to help? Like the video, share the video. Get people come over here, help subscribe. Again, I'm the most hated show on the black corner of the internet. Yes, you might not be, as some people have a problem with saying black. You might be white, you might be yellow, you might be red. But all of this affects one way or another. But again, this is Black Minds News, particularly because of black media. I do talk to my people, but that don't mean that you others who are coming by and hear me, don't be mad. Just hear for what it is. You understand? You got to hear for what it is, right? And so these interventions at large scale may run a greater risk of disrupting natural systems, resulting in a dilemma that those approaches that could prove highly, what they want to talk about, cost effective in addressing extreme climate risk, right? But this concept of engineering, the climate presents a moral hazard. Now you're talking to people who say, oh, moral. That's black folks always worry about moral. People don't worry about no damn moral. What is that? What are you talking about? Moral. Huh. So this is what it's really trying to do. That's what that's like saying, having that dust and see how that sun is kind of just peeking out. They want to use like the blackness of the eclipse to do what they want the chalk to do. So that it's blocking most of the sun. So that means that the parts that are not getting as much sun will be habitable and not as much radiation. And then, the thing they say, well, it's cooling down. Yeah. We hear you. We hear what you're saying, right? We hear all that, right? Yeah. So again, the lead parts of the planet uninhabitable by humans, really? By humans, right? Now they talk about in Australia, they say the maximum temperature is already tops about 123 degrees Fahrenheit. Now the dust cloud concept says it gives politicians an excuse not to take the difficult actions required to properly tackle climate change. What can they really do? See, when you're talking about greed and capitalism and all the things that have lined the pockets, you can't get rid of them business because now that's taken away from profit. So you try to find ways to try to soften the blow, but softening in this case may not do what's really needed. And so if you're not willing to, give it all up, right? Blocking the sun would do nothing to remove the main cause of the global warming. That's the fact. They just may not do everything you needed to be done to do that. But you'll try anyway, right? That's how it looks like, y'all. You know, they got high hopes. We can get it done. We can get it right. We can get this right. Believe me, we'll get it right. All right. Go ahead, right? And so they think this will cool the planet by reflecting the solar radiation, but once you're on that, it's like taking heroin. Now listen to this. They said if they could cool the planet by reflecting the solar radiation, but once they're going to be on such a high that, okay, we did this. Come on. We can do more. So it's like they believe it's kind of like being on a heroin rush. And they're going to keep on and keep on and keep on doing it. Now, the problem is, without tackling the pollution first, so that means you're going to have to keep lifting more and more dust into the stratosphere, right? So you don't get rid of, again, you're making just the radiation from the sun is the only cause and effects that's causing this global warming. You got other things. So you think what was that old one that the Peter Punkanita would put his finger in the holes, and every time put a finger in that hole, a new leak would come, he had enough fingers to put in the damn hole, and then what happened? It all just collapsed. Did it not? Did it not? Right? So what you gonna do? Keep putting more, right? And then what will end up happening is you'll change the daylight, the daytime sky to white. You turn the daylight sky and it just be white. Oh, you're dreaming. Oh, shit. Everything, they be doing everything be white, right? So if you ever stop, let's say you stop putting up the dust and you got it all. So now what happens when it starts raining? And what happens to the global temperature? Aren't you offsetting that too? Yeah, you can say Peter Punkanita, right? You clogging one, trying to do another one. Now, you might have think, where did they get this idea from, right? Where did they even come up with something like this, right? Well, according to when I had read this article where they talked about it, said the inspiration behind, they say, seeding the sky with these plumes of dust, it came from, there was a volcano called Mount Pinatubo, right? Mount Pinatubo, which was in the Philippines, that exploded back in 1991. Killed about 700 people, left in more than 200,000 people homeless. And I think we got a picture for that? I think we got a picture for that, right? Yeah, there we go. Right, there you go. And accordingly, they said that it gave the scientists a chance to monitor sequences of a vast chemical cloud in the stratosphere, right? So based on what you see there, the ideas in those scientists was like, okay, remember when that happened in Mount Pinatubo happened in 1991? And remember how put all that chemical into the air? Somebody had a grandiose idea. Somebody said, ideal of a dream. Fix of global warming. Maybe if we could do that and make it so it's up in there that it could block the sun. And based on that, what you see on your screen, they say that subject gave at least 100 academic papers that people were coming up with ideas how to use what happened with the volcano, how it could be some way used for climate warming. Ain't that something? And so with all that, that's what came the idea of creating the amount to a gigantic sunshade for the earth. But again, will it come at a high price? Pose an even greater risk that the climate change itself. So they say fear is that spreading dust into the stratosphere may damage the ozone layer that protects us from the hazardous ultraviolet radiation, which can damage human DNA and cause cancer. Already doing that. And that isn't just because maybe it is a Mellicat cocktail, radiation from the sun, also with the pollutants and everything else, combination on us in our atmosphere. Maybe that's what it might be causing. Maybe there were some things that were forbidden for man to not do. Matter of fact, we as black people know a story that I may not go over here, but a story about how somebody decided to do and try to be like the creator and wanted to be like creator. It's kind of like the Frankenstein movie, want to make his own man. And we have been suffering ever since, have we not? Right? So that's the thing. Maybe you're doing some things that you shouldn't be doing. So you're going to try to test it any damn way, right? So you have climatologists. They're concerned. They think about such tinkering could unintentionally disrupt the circulation of ocean currents that regulate our weather. See, it's a cause and effect. You can't just say, I'm doing this, that's going to create, again, you might do this, but it's going to cause something else. But as long as I get that done, I don't care about the rest. You know what I'm saying? See? And that's how you got into this position. When you didn't care about nature, you didn't care about cause and effect. To enslave people the same way, the cause and effect. Right? All right. And so with all this that you're trying to do, to offset could unleash a global outbreak, what they say, of extreme climate events, devastate the farmlands, wipe out entire species, foster disease epidemics, which we don't need no more of that, right? Whether those want to believe it's false or not, right? And so when you think about this dimming this sun, right? When you think about it, are there any winners? And if there's some losers, right? Are there losers? Y'all tell me what y'all think about that, right? We'll be right back. I think we back, right? We back? And we back? Yeah, we back, right? All right. So, again, somebody wants to take chalk dust, spread it across the stratosphere to put a blocking shading to somehow sell the fact that talk about, well, we're going to cool the planet, but also trying to block some of that radiation. I guess we're going to have to figure out who that is and why that is, right? Something, huh? Well, you remember we was talking about, right? That, right? So again, that's just dealing with that, right? So what about, I seen this too, right? Yeah, go and put that one up there for me, sir. You got that one? Yeah, you gotta put that one up there. Yeah, you can put that one up there. There you go. All right, so I seen this again. Go back and show that one once again, because remember, right? Remember the imposition of a global agreement, right? Imposition, right? So I seen this, as this is part of the theme, right, that we're talking about. So I seen this. Did you do that already, sir? I don't know if you did that, right? Did you do that? I think, yeah, you ready. You on time today, huh? All right. No, I don't think you're right, sir. Okay, you're right. Okay. All right, so go ahead and show that for everybody. All right, so let's go ahead and show that. Okay? All right, you see that on your screen there, right? I seen this story too, man. I was like, well, wait, hold on. You know what I'm saying? You know how we put it together over here. So it says, we finally know how sperm remember and pass on non-DNA coded traits to embryos. Let me say that again. We finally know how sperm remember and pass on non-DNA coded traits to embryos. What? They done found, finally. Wait a minute. What's the name? Finally. You know that song she used to sing, Finally. Finally. So wait, let's look at this, man. Let's look at this. Think about that, right? When somebody say finally, right? That means you've been in quest for something, right? That means that has been part of, this has been a quest to try to understand something that has been behooving your mind, right? So let's look at that. The word that says on your screen, we finally know, right? Who is we? We as a group? Is it we as a team? Is it we as a community? Is it we as a race? And to finally know how it works or how sperm remembers, to whom is the beneficiaries of this to know? Right? These are the questions you got to ask yourself, right? The we who have come to know, right? The we. Who is the we? Because you know that the dictionary means what we say, but we is Black Americans, Moorish Americans, Israel, all those that we call, that we ain't in that. It's just like when they say we the people in the Constitution, say, well, you were not included in that, right? So this we, right? And, you know, the we who have come to know, what's the pros and cons to this we know? Huh? What's the pros and cons to this? And to say finally, well, you know, when somebody say finally, they meaning in the end. So in the end, we know. After all, we know. At last, we know. At long last, we know. Eventually, we know. In the long run, we know. When all is said and done, we know. So now, finally, y'all know what you sought for, right? You're finally for long term, right? Now what? Now that you know, what is it that they want to do, y'all? Huh? You want to what? Adjust something? Because let's look at what it says here. We finally know how sperm remember and pass on non-DNA coded traits to embryo. Studies in mammals have shown that the memories of various environmental effects such as diet, weight, and stress. Now, wait a minute. Why would you worry about the diet, weight, and stress in mammals? Huh? And they're saying they're being passed on from dads to offsprings. Okay, now. Hold on. Wait a minute. Is we trying to tell me that they are interested in what? What you trying to tell me? They're interested in what? What they interested in? They are interested in what? Wait a minute. Hold on. Let me. Can you put that up there for me, sir? Because let's look at this. All right, let's look at this. When you talk about mammals, right, look at this, right? You see that on your screen there? You see all the different varieties, they say mammals. But look at the one in the middle, second from the top. What mammal is that? Oh. So maybe this article is talking about the second one in the middle, right? Because I wouldn't understand why would you be worried about the diet and weight and stress and talking about how in the sperm something that's going to pass on from dads to offspring, and despite, they say, the state not being coded for in the DNA sequence carried by the sperm. Now we is who, have a new explanation for how it's possible. So how it's possible for you to do what? Are you going to tinker with this? Are you going to play with this? You're going to do something that's, again, beneficial for whom? Right? So I want the Title Sin to show you, just as you've seen in your image here, right? But go ahead, show that for everybody once again, sir. Right? All right? Remember that? All right? Keep that theme in your head. Right? Okay, so let's get into some more, right? Let me tell you about this article I had seen. Let me talk about it. Right? Now, again, they say studying mammals. Remember that picture I just showed you? You've seen all the animals, but there was one in there that looked like you, that resembled you, that was like you, right? Okay. And so they say that this story that they're talking about has a lot to do with the epigenetics. Now, I'm not a scientist. I do research. I try to get an understanding of certain things, right? But they talk about the molecules that attach themselves to the DNA and act like, they say, on and off switches. Now, wait a minute. And I did some studies that they done finally figured it out that there is a molecule in the epigenetics that they found that they can turn off and on. And they found that in this on and off switch and the controls that it do, it's part of the section of the DNA that gets used. And so up until now, they say they didn't know which molecules can carry the settings marked by a father's life experience. Wait a minute. Are you worried about that? Hey, go back, show the pictures again. Are they worried about, when they talk about the mammals, are they talking about, wait a minute, put that back up there for me, sir. Now, they want me to believe that they want about the father of the mammals of which one of the group. You know, back in the day, one of these things is doing its own thing. Tell me which one. You remember that that was old school, remember those, right? Which one of these is the one they talking about that this study is they pretending to that they, again, so helpfully want to help you with? Huh? Which one is that one? Right? Okay. All right. Okay. So, again, until now, they done found out which molecule that carries the setting marked by a father's life experience. That goes into the embryo via sperm. Now, they found something in the father's sperm that they found a switch that they can turn off and on that has something to do with the marked settings of the father's life experience. What? Little John, what? Right? So, now, wait a minute. You're talking about epigenetics, right? Now, epigenetics is the study of heritable phenotype changes. Phenotype changes. Now, wait a minute. This ain't what y'all talking about. This ain't something you're going to be able to see on the outside, right? Changing as, wait a minute. You say you want to change the life experience. You want to alter the molecule that's tied in epigenetics that is going to be passed from the father to when he produces and having a child. You want to turn it off and on for those who you want on and off for. Huh? That has something to do with these epigenetics, which epigenetics is the study of heritable phenotype changes. Now, accordingly, it do not involve in the alteration of the DNA sequence. So you can't alter the DNA sequence, but these things that are on the outside, you can actually change somehow. These things that are sit on the top or the outside, right? These are the traditional genetic basis for inheritance. Wait a minute. See how somebody say one thing, but you gotta understand how they, you know how they say, read in between the lines or read the fine print. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Now, the epigenetics most often changes the affect gene activity and expression. So wait a minute. Somebody wants to go in there and turn off and on a gene that has something to do with your expression. Huh? They want to go in there and change the thing that they said that got something to do with remembering. To re-identify, to dwell upon the past, to live in the past, to memorialize, to return to thought. What is it that they going in here that they feel the need to go in there to turn off and on? Now, you know, also in imposition, as we go back to, remember that the imposition was about what? Right? Remember this here? Remember when it's talking about the title, remember the imposition? Right? Now, you know, also imposition also is the fact that when you talk about imposter, deception, delusion, the deceit, fraud, fake, swindle, cheat, trick, stratagem. Right? Oh, it seemed like this. We're caring about his diet. We're caring about the diet and the stress and about your weight. Right? Really? Really? But you in here talking about messing with something that has something to do with passing on to the next offspring, to alter, to turn on and off the activity of expressions, going back to one's remembrance that's only coming through the Father. Wow. And you know that this heritable phenotypic change, now these effects on the cellular and physiological phenotypical traits may result from external or environmental factors. Part of normal development. Normal, again, just like we was talking about weather modification. Trying to alter to make something happen that you need, but it's offsetting and going to create something else. So wouldn't it be the same thing here? If you think that you finally got something that you found in the sperm that you could turn a switch on and off to your liking? It'd be right in your damn face, but if sometimes you're not looking, you ain't seen it. Right? So they say that the standard definition of epigenetics requires these alterations to be heritable. The progeny, cells of organisms. This is a spiritual war. It's a spiritual war. Now they're talking about the mechanism that produce such changes. They call them DNA methylation and histone modification. They alter how genes are expressed without altering the underlying DNA sequence. Gene expressions can be controlled through the actions of repressor proteins, which they attach to silencer regions of the DNA. Is this natural? Or this is Frankenstein creating a man of his own. He wants a man of repute of his own, the way he sees fit, not the way that the originator who created all things want, but the way he sees fit. right? And then when they talk about this gene expression can be controlled through the actions of this repressor protein, right? Now, this epigenetic change, they say can last through cell divisions for the duration of the cell's life. So check this out. You remember you heard the story of Henrietta Lacks and how Henrietta Lacks has been gone from the planet for so long now that her genes are still being used to this day, are still living and being used to further whatever science they're doing. So here's the same thing saying that when we use this technique to turn this switch off in this epigenetics, this change in this cell division can be through the duration of the cell's life, not the individual, the cell. So that means from you who hearing me and having a child and then they do this, that means everything that produced from after you, this can continue as long as the life of the cells are existing. So whatever that changing of your, again, they want to take away the memory. They want to take away what re-identifies, what dwells upon the past, what lives in the past, what we memorialize, what we return to thought about. Spiritual wars. Okay, right? You don't hear me though. And they say it can last for multiple generations. Now, what they want to say is, even though we might turn that off, it does not involve changes in the underlying DNA sequence of the organism. We're not going to tamper with that. We're just going to help you to get rid of your stress and, and all your bad eating habits. That, it's kind of like, remember those, when they were talking about the Scientology and talking about getting audited, right? And get yourself fixed, right? It's kind of like Bob Barker on The Price is Right. He's always talking about get your dog spayed or neutered, right? He didn't ask the dog, do you want to get his shit cut off, right? Right? So you spayed and neutering him, right? So isn't that the same thing here? Oh, wait a minute. Mr. Blow Your Mind, wait a minute now. Hold on, wait a minute. You're taking this a little bit too far. You're taking it too far. What do you mean I'm taking it too far? You're just taking it too damn far. You're trying to act as if like that, we're not like that. We're really not like that. You're really not like what? What you really not like? Oh, okay, I get what you're trying to say. So you're trying to say that I am sitting here making this up, right? Because I fantasize that racism and we're just saying, really just saying that what happened with black folks, right, didn't really happen. It was just a figment of our imagination. Well, I remember, again, I didn't get a chance to do the show. For those who've seen that live show that day, when I did the show and there was no damn sound coming from me, hey, wasn't that a bitch? I was sitting here, did a whole damn live show for 2 damn hours, come to find out afterwards that there was no damn, my mic wasn't on the whole damn time. These mugs be doing some of the most, you know what I'm saying? They be doing some things, man, but we, how it is, right? But okay. All right, so for those who might be new hearing this and say, he's just a racist. He just, you're always trying to blame. You're always looking for trying to blame it. All right. How about this? What if they say it, right? What if they say it, right? American medicine was built on the backs of slaves, and it still affects how doctors treat patients today. Let me say that again. American medical, or it should be medical. It's not really medicine. It's really American medical. But you saying medicine was built on the backs of slaves, and it still affects how doctors treat patients today. Now, I didn't write this. I did not write this, right? But let me tell you when I read this article and what it talked about. Now, they was talking about in 1894. Wait a minute, hold on. Before we go on there, let's take a break. Be right back. Let's take a break. All right, we are back. So, in 1894, they were talking about the Journal of American Medical Association and how a public statue had been erected. And it was of the memory of a member of the medical profession. You know what his name is? Can y'all see that? Maybe they need a close-up. Maybe they can't see that. They need a close-up on who that is right there, right? A lot of women should know who this is, right? Go ahead and show that, right? Okay. Yeah, I'm going to get that close-up on him, right? That's J. Marion Sims. Ever heard of J. Marion Sims? Now, they first unveiled him, again, like I said, in 1984 or 1894. They put him in Brant Park in New York City. And then on the inscription of his so-called statue, they had put on there, whose brilliant achievements carry the fame of American surgery throughout the civilized world. Now, when you compile this J. Marion Sims so-called path-breaking accomplishments, you know, he's known for designing the vaginal speculum, right? The vaginal speculum, right? The vesicovaginal fistula, what they call the VVF, right? And so this same J. Marion Sims became the president of the American Medical Association. They dubbed him as the father of modern gynecology. And it was quoted as talked about in 1934 that the statue of Sim was relocated, right? And they put it in the New York Academy of Medicine, right? And he became what they say a potent symbol of American medicine, right? Now look at that, right? Right? Let's look at this, understand this. When people who sit here and they saying things, and then we're saying that, again, just like people who are apprehensive about taking the jab, right? And people want to try to hold us and make us feel shame and something wrong. The history has shown this. It don't have to be Tuskegee. We have many unsung hero stories that probably never ever going to be told of some of the things that have ever happened. So you need shows like Black Minds News Report to report things from the news, but give you the historical parts to it as well. Again, if you have not subscribed, take yourself over there, subscribe. And I also have another channel, Black Minds News TV. That's BLAKMINDZ TV. Go over there, subscribe, help me to get 100 over there. You know, doing everything to stop me, but you know, we do what we do. Now, when we're talking about this VFF, remember that VFF stands for what? It's vesicovaginal fistula, right? Now, they say he developed that, right? Now, how he so-called developed this came as a result of him experimenting and performed on this on who? My ancestors, your ancestors, those of us who cut from the same cloth, right? It was our ancestors who he did this to, right? And so the same way that they were doing that, the same ideology still persists, and it's the way that racism and slavery shaped American medicine. That's what they talked about in this article, right? And so they talk about the systemic influence of institutional racism on American medicine. And it went far beyond any individual physician. See, as I'm talking about previous to this, is about, remember, they done found something in the sperm, right? So I want to backtrack it a little bit to remind you. You forgot about this? You probably didn't. Because you got to remember, after 1808, when the federal ban on importing slaves from other countries took effect, this was the perpetuation of American slavery became dependent on slaves, on the domestic slave birth, right? Now you're talking about now when they were stopping slavery from after 1808, again they say illegal, right? And then remember they were catching all those ships, and then what were they doing with those that were still trying to sneak even though after you made it illegal? You know what they did? They still took them and put them on somebody's plantation. They just had to pay them for them. You get what I'm saying? But anyway, they made the federal ban, right? And so based on this ban, it was outlawed to supposedly bring in more new people here. So now the game was about now procreating, letting our ancestors, sisters, keep procreating to keep the business afloat, right? And so what happens, that became the economic interest of the master, and if you be in a position, this is bread and this is butter in your bread, right? And so when you look at this, you know, in order for this so-called physician to keep maintaining and having good rapport with masters, to keep getting that call up, his business and priority now was to make sure that they want to say he was promote healthy births of slave children. So his whole observation now is about trying to maintain that there will be good birth. But that's a lie. That was because white women were losing their baby and dying through childbirth, and this is how they came up with that. But they're not going to talk about that part. They're just going to make it seem as if like it's all about black women and having good, healthy babies so there would be good production for economics. But that's not all of it. There was another part to that as well. But anyway, moving on. So here it is that you will see them portray themselves helping. You know, they again, just like now, we hear somebody who say, come on, you guys, if you didn't take it, you guys, you need to take the jab because then that way you know, right? And we like, huh? Somebody really, you caring about somebody? Really? Oh, okay. And so with that being the way they portrayed it, they also was able to reap the professional benefits by having the access to being able, what they said, they could experiment on our ancestors without them having even a consent. They couldn't say no. Huh? Can you imagine this, y'all? Especially females, right? Imagine this, right? And so these economic incentives drove medical innovation. So here they was, again, like I said, they're not going to tear it apart that when white women was having a lot of, you know, childbirth, dying through childbirth, they want to find ways to make it. So here they use the sisters, right? So gynecological, the gynecological examination of black women influenced the country's slave market, they say. Slavery, medicine, medical publishings, right? The synergistic partnership, all these conformed in one, is how you're going to end up creating what? Your AMA, your American Medical Association, right? And so we see that the establishment of this gynecology as a medical specialty that was formulated here in the United States by our ancestors. So everybody keep want to say that black Americans have not contributed. We have contributed more than many. We have give much to the world. To be those people who are here, when you talk about economics and how that the slave trade and the economics also helped and flourished other nations and brought it up, you better kneel to Zod. You better kneel to Zod. Now, this systematic influence of an institutional racism on American medicine, right? This is what they saying, right? Okay. All right. So, when you look at this and you see the conditions, where they want to talk about that VBF, and they talk about how it's threatened a slave woman's ability to perform hard labor, right? And her future reproductive capacity. So this gave this so-called Marion Sims, the motivation to go into experiment where he took 14 of our ancestors, housed them on his property, And one particular one, they call her Anacara, or Anarcha, right? They did at least 30 experiments on her. And it was through this that ended up creating what they call the landmark development. Now, when you look at this racial belief associated with slavery, it also provided perceived ethical justification for conducting repeat invasion experiments like those that he did, right? That Marion Sims, or J. Sim Marion, right? And what he did on women's genitalia between 1845 and 1849, and they did it without anesthesia, right? Without anesthesia, right? And so this status, as we being enslaved people, and black women in particular, are considered appropriate subjects for such experiments, was based on widespread belief that we as black people experience less pain than white people. Let me say this again. It was said that the status of we being, again, enslaved people, right, black women in particular, were considered appropriate subjects for this type of experiment, based on they had a widespread belief that black people experience less pain than white people. Now, this idea had helped rationalize the enslavement of black Americans and receive the imprimatur. You know what imprimatur is? The gold standard. It is the standard by which, standard of good. It is guaranteed that this will work because you worked with the best and you got the best results. And here we are, 400 years from 1619 of day count, and everybody's still trying to question, talking about how black people are racist. So, what that kind of impure thought, the prominent physicians of that day, they were contending that black people possess thicker skulls, less sensitive nervous systems, had these racial beliefs about pain tolerance, and permeated American association. This thought permeated the whole damn association and persisted way beyond the institution of slavery. There was a biography written on J. Marion Sims back in 1950, and it suggests that slave women endured the BBB experiment with amazing patience and fortitude. They said a grim stoicism, which may have been part of their racial endowment. Or our racial endowment created us to be able to take pain. Right. Okay. That's what they say, right? Okay. That's what they say, right? Crazy, right? Crazy when you think about that, right? We'll talk about that God gene, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that, right? So ain't that something? Right? That's something, ain't it? That is something. That is something. So, going back to, right? We're going to go back to with the sperm, right? And that was females. That was the females. That was the females. What about what they talking about now? Who are they talking about now? Show it again. What are they talking about now? Because they said the big breakthrough with this study, has identified a non-DNA base by which sperm remembers a father's environment. I'm going to say that again. The big breakthrough with this study, remember this here what we're talking about, has identified a non-DNA base by which sperm remembers a father's environment. Now again, they try to say diet. The hell you worrying about the father's diet? We know that's bullshit. And transmit that information to the embryo. So something in this father that they're worried about, this particular mammal, something in this father, they want to turn it off so they don't pass it on down to his children. They use mice, right? And using mice was able to demonstrate the effects of the folate deficient diet. Now again, they want to stick to diet, right? That's the selling point for those who can't see in between the lines, right? And how I could pass on by altering histone molecules in sperm. Histones, is that really a basic protein that DNA winds around the tangle-free storage? So I'm going to talk about that tangle-free storage because that tangle-free storage has something to do with what they said, the God gene. They never really study about it. At least they don't talk about it. But this storage place, I know they're talking about that storage place and about this God gene, but we're not going to equate that. But again, in mammals, they say when male body builds sperm, it throws out most of the histone spool and it allows it for tighter packing. Small percentage still remains. They say 1% in mice and 50% in humans. So they already been doing this. They know 15% in humans. How they know 15% in humans if you was only just saying studying mice? But you just said you know humans. So this scaffolding for the DNA in regions specific to sperm creation and functions, metabolism, embryo development, to allow the cellular mechanism to make use of these DNA instructions. Somebody wants to rewrite something and infuse it to someone's liking. That's what they're saying, right? So they said something about chemical modification of these histones. Chemical modification. Oh, you can chemical modification to this? Now, this is a common form being what they call, remember I said earlier about methylation. What allows or prevents the DNA to be read so that it can be transcribed into protein products. Again, they want to talk about poor diet, cause these histones to change their metallization status. Now they say by feeding mice a folate deficient diet. Now again, that's what they're hiding, right? They're hiding in there. They're talking about this diet, really? When we talk about expressions and remembrance, and we talking about all those things like that, this is what we're talking about, really? Okay, so they talk about, okay, when we weaned, from the time when the mouse was weaned, researchers were able to track the change in his histones in the male sperm, and the resulting embryos and sperm histone change were also present in development of the embryo. No one has been able to track how those heritable environment signatures are transmitted from the sperm to the embryo before. They also discovered the effects could be cumulative and lead to an increase in the severity of birth defects or defects. What they talking about? What they talking about? What they talking about? These birth defects seen in mice, including underdevelopment at birth. Well, if it's good for the mouse, it must be good for the human. Or the mammal, I'm sorry. They have spinal abnormalities. According to them, they say this is well documented when they talk about folate deficient human population. This is well documented. We did this in studying the folate deficiency in humans. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you just got to see it for what you see it for. I'm just here to tell the news, right? So they say expanding their knowledge of inherited mechanisms to reveal new ways to treat, prevent, really? So the next step will be to determine harmful changes induced in sperm protein can be repaired. Really? Okay. Right? Yeah. Ain't that something, y'all? So, is it a figure of our imagination? Or is there something there? Or maybe you're just drawing a line to a conclusion that's not there, Mr. Blows Your Mind. And you're seeing things. You know, that's why we want to go ahead and we want to cut that off, right? We want to cut that out so that way that you guys don't have any connection. Because, see, sometimes you guys are, believing in things that aren't there and saying that we're doing things, and you never prove it. Nope, we don't never prove it. But somehow it manifests itself, right? It always manifests itself. All right, so with that being said, we come to the conclusion of this. And I want y'all to understand this here, right? Now, again, these are not my words. These are the words of a person who's a profession. And, once again, go back and show that once again, sir. Before you go to here, go back there. Go back. Because remember, this here, right? Remember this, right? So, check this out. And we'll be right back.
Okay, so what I'm going to try and do is just give you some charts and a couple of tables just to paint a little bit of a picture that you already know. Okay, so what this presentation is fundamentally designed to say is this. Africa, historically, Sub-Saharan Africa, has been fundamental to the global prosperity of the advanced countries. Okay? And Africa had a role to play. It has a role as a raw material producer. We will not allow Sub-Saharan Africa to escape that. Okay, we do everything to keep Sub-Saharan Africa where it is, also impoverished. It's absolutely vital for the prosperity of everyone else. So let's get clear about that. Okay, and this means all the economic structures, all the global institutions, and the economics we teach everyone is all designed to keep Africa exactly where it is. And whether it is Europe or US or now China, it's always the same. We need Africa to be impoverished because we need those raw materials and we need them dirt cheap. Okay, so that's the message. It doesn't mean to say that there's nothing Africans can do. Of course there is. Okay, but this is the opposition that they're fighting. This is what it's about. Because if Africa does do something different, I assure you living standards of all those in Europe and North America and Asia is going to fall. Okay? And that is a big price to pay. I assure you that the West is not going to allow that without a big fight. Okay, so this is what it's fundamentally about. What I want to show you is how these structures are operating. It's just 20 minutes, so we can't do very much, but just to give you a little bit of an idea. And why I keep the ideology part there is because we are part of the producers of ideology. At universities and academic institutions, we are complicit in this whole enterprise. Okay, so the job of many Western academics is to convince Africans they have to keep doing what they're doing. Okay, and to show them it's your fault that you're poor. It's not our fault. It's your fault that you're poor. You know, so this is what we do in academic institutions, and I want to show that as well. Let me just start. This is what it's basically about, so you know what it's about. But I want to just show you the extent to which Africa is specializing in the production of raw materials and basic agricultural goods. We know the basic forces that have caused this underdevelopment. We know it's colonization. I will not discuss that very much because my colleague speaker is going to go into some aspects of this. But I do want to discuss the global economic structures, the global financial institutions, and economic ideology, briefly, to give you a flavor of those. Let me start with this. You can't really see it so easily, but if those of you who are interested, you want the PowerPoint, I'm sure we can make it available to you. But the thing that you really need to see is the top line. Okay, and the extent of dependency is captured by this statistic at the top. Okay, and you compare it with all other income groups, and what you see is essentially in that one statistic how dependent Sub-Saharan Africa is on raw material production. Okay, this is the very heart of what makes Sub-Saharan Africa beat. Okay, here, just to have a look at one very important additional statistic, with all this export coming from Sub-Saharan Africa, how much does Sub-Saharan Africa account for in terms of global trade value? We know there are vast resources coming from there, but look at the bottom line in terms of global trade value. Look at that.
All right, I think, are we back? Yeah, we're back. Okay. So that was an individual who was part of the human development. Well, I ain't gonna say that. Not part of human development. He's part of the, international? Yeah, I think, no, that's the wrong one, sir. Yeah. Yeah, you got the wrong one, right? Yeah. So the individual who you see sitting before on the podium there, he's from the International Institute of Social Studies, the ISS as they call it, right? It's at Erasmus University, Rotterdam, right? It's an independent and international graduate school of policy-oriented critical social study, or social science. Established in 1952 by Dutch universities, Netherlands Ministry of Education, located in the Netherlands. They call it The Hague, right? Known as the world's legal capital. Has about 300 to 400 students, enrolls in the ISS program, Master's and PhD program in Development Studies. And then you heard him say some things that for some of you may have rocked your boat a little bit, but let's go ahead and give you part 2 to that, and then I'll come back on that and we'll go from there. So check this out. Here's the second part, and then be right back.
75.95% going down to 0.1. To 0.1. Meaning that with all these vast resources being produced, how much are they getting for it? Nothing. Nothing. This is a very significant piece of data. Then I just want to show you what has happened to Sub-Saharan Africa, because what we know, and from all studies, no country ever develops without manufacturing. Okay, producing raw materials will not take you anywhere. Producing basic agricultural goods will not take you anywhere. And let's have a look at how manufacturing activity takes place in Sub-Saharan Africa. We can look over the last 15 odd years, 15, 20 years. And we see manufacturing has actually declined as a percentage of the total. This is percentages of total production in Sub-Saharan Africa. How much of it is accounted for by manufacturing? So this figure here is 17% of the total. Most of the rest, when we talk of industry, it includes manufacturing, but the bulk of it is mining. Okay? Raw material extraction. This is the bulk of it. And here we see actually raw material extraction has stayed the same. What has caused industry to fall is the fall in manufacturing production. This is deliberate because we will never, as Western economists, as Western policymakers, we cannot afford to allow Africa to industrialize and start producing manufactures. Okay, so we will do everything to stop that. And I'm going to show you how we actually block that. It's obvious in certain ways, but it's less obvious in other ways. Now, we have actually seen periods of rapid growth in Sub-Saharan Africa, misleading people, saying, oh, you know, we're now doing much better. And this has happened recently. Recently, I've had students come and tell me, we've done much better now. And you can see growth rates rose quite sharply in recent times. Now are starting to go again down. But if you look historically, the same thing happened earlier. Why? Because in these two periods, we had East Asian rapid industrialization processes. So in the earlier period, we had Japan and Korea and Taiwan. Okay, rapid growth, sucking in raw materials from Africa, driving up the prices, and then Sub-Saharan African countries grew. Exporting raw materials, they grew. But after those countries finished industrialization, then Sub-Saharan African growth rate again fell. Okay, but along comes China. Next wave. Okay, again, Sub-Saharan African growth rises, but now China is going down. As many of you now know from the press, China is going down. But Sub-Saharan Africa is going down even faster. And we're going to go back to where we were again, with very low prices of raw materials, very low growth rates, and again, the sorts of poverty that we saw once before. Because, bottom line, Sub-Saharan Africa is condemned to this role, just the supplier of raw materials, not a manufacturer.
All right, I think we are back. Are we back? Are we back? I think we're back, right? All right, so we are back, right? So you got the two parts to that. Again, that was the ISS instructor talked to his students, as you heard some of the things that he talked about. Remember, he said he was going to paint the picture, right? About Sub-Saharan is fundamentally the world's prosperity to the so-called, what he said, advanced countries, right? The advanced country. What is that advanced country, right? Now, when you talk about these advanced countries, let me tell y'all something here, right? These advanced countries is what they call the Human Development Index. That's what you can look under, right? These are called your first world countries, right? And the UN, right, what they call this Human Development Index. It uses as a statistical measure that gauges a country's level of human development. Strong correlation between having a high, which is Human Development Index score, being a prosperous economy. The UN points out that the HDI, again, this Human Development Index, accounts for more than income or productivity. The HDMI takes into account how income is turned into education and health opportunities, and therefore into higher levels of human development. And so what I'm about to show you was the 2019 Human Development Report by the United Nations program released on December 19th of 2019, and it's showing that the very high human development countries, right? That's what they say, the very high development countries. Now I want you to see this here, right? Right? I want you to see this. Because you heard what he was saying, right? Right? That he said that Africa, this country in itself is basically, you know, well, I'll get into it. Let me show you first this. Let me show you this. Okay, let's go ahead and show this, sir. Okay. Now, these would be considered your HDMIs according to the UN. Norway, Switzerland, Ireland, Germany. Now, they're going in the order of the top. So Norway is the #1 human developed country in the world. Then Switzerland, then Ireland, then Germany, and Hong Kong, Australia, Iceland, Sweden. Now, remember, Sweden was where Bill Gates and them was going to do the chalk it. Now that you can see why they're going to do that over there, because it's a highly developed country, right? Okay, you got Singapore, the Netherlands, Denmark, Finland, Canada, New Zealand, United Kingdom, United States, 16, right? Then you got Belgium, Liechtenstein, Japan, Austria, Luxembourg, Israel, South Korea, Slovenia, Spain, Czechoslovakian Republic, France, Malta, Italy, Estonia, Cyprus, right? Next one, sir. You got Greece, Poland, Lithuania. You got the Arab Emirates. You got Andorra. You got Saudi Arabia. You got Slovakia, Latvia, Portugal, Qatar, Chile, right? Next one, sir. You got Brunei, Hungary, Bahrain, Croatia, Oman, Argentina, Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Bulgaria, Montenegro, right? You got Romania, Palau, Barbados, Kuwait, Uruguay, Turkey, Bahamas, Malaysia, Seychelles, all right? They call it Seychelles, or you can say Seychelles or Seychelles, right? Okay, so there's 62, according to the United Nations, human developed, right, countries. How many of them were black? Oh, I see Bahamas, but is it black? I see Barbados, but is it black? Right? 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 Ain't that something, right? Ain't that something, right? So, but, you know, you heard in the conversation with the individual that was talking in that ISS, he's talking about how Africa, right, and how, wait a minute, you need to show something there, sir, because I don't see that. You don't see that. Is that, there we go. Okay, so now for those who may not know, what are the Sub-Saharan African countries, right? Some people may not know what that is. Could you set that up, put that on the screen for me, sir? Or should we just go ahead and read them out? We're probably going to do both anyway, but let's, for those who may not know, right? Because you heard him, and don't know, it seems like it's not get it all in there. Why is that? Okay. There you go. There you go, sir. All right. Show that for a screen there, sir. All right, so these are all the countries of Sub-Saharan Africa, right? They got the Angola, Benin, Botswana, Burkina Faso, Burundi, Cabo Verde, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Cameroon, the Congo Democrat Republic, Congo Republic of, and then you got Cote d'Ivoire, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Swanti, right? You got Ethiopia, you got Gabon, you got Gambia, Ghana, Guinea-Bissau, Kenya, Lesotho, Liberia, Madagascar, Malawi, Mali, Mauritania, Mauritius, Mozambique, Namibia, Nigeria, Rwanda, Sao Tome Principe, Senegal, Seychelles. Well, I guess Seychelles is the only one that's in there. Seychelles was part of, remember? I said Seychelles, right? So Seychelles is the only developed country in the Sub-Saharan, right? Then you got Sierra Leone, Somalia, South Africa, South Sudan, Tanzania, Togo, Uganda, Zambia, and Zimbabwe, right? And they say Djibouti is not included in Sub-Saharan and is handled administrated as part of the Middle East and North Africa. Ain't that something? Djibouti is not part of that, right? So, okay. Okay, so, but, you know, there's probably, there's 54 countries in, there's probably 54, right? There's 54, right? So, yeah, that's easy. And what about the ones that were not supposed to be on there? But, okay, that's fine. You showed that. Okay. Right? So, let's look at some of the things that he said, right? Right? Let's look at some of the things he said. Now, you know, there's 54 countries that are considered 54 countries in Africa, but you see the ones that were not part of Sub-Saharan were like Algeria, Egypt, Libya, Morocco, Tunisia, right? And I seen another one that talked about, it had said Somalia was part of that too. And just like say Djibouti. So it was Algeria, Djibouti, Egypt, Libya, Morocco, Somalia, Sudan was part of it then, but you see later they put it in Tunisia. So that means about 50, was it, 46. And then there's 46 countries that's part of the Sahara Africa, right? So as you heard this individual that was in that, classroom talking, and that he's saying that Africa got to learn to play its role, right? It's very vital that Africa plays its role for the benefit of all those nations that I just showed you, not the Sub-Saharan ones, but the ones that were considered first world nations, right? It is a vital role that they stay undeveloped, impoverished, non-industrious, and cheap. And that they play the role as just a producer, right? But I've seen some videos recently of, showing manufacturers and people trying to, build cars. I did some research. I won't bust it out, but, you can see some video. I think his name is Wody. Right? You've seen the brother out there. He's doing in Africa, doing some, journalism work for his nation and countrymen. And so, the things that he said were just, kind of game we got. I mean, there's actually a 20, 30-minute video. That was a 9-minute video. So those out there see can just go look at shocking said about Africa. And I think you'll see that entire video, right? And so, according to what you heard him say, he said they will not allow Africa to escape that role. Think about that. Mama say, hey, man. So, a lot of people who would like to say, oh, man, this race game and all this stuff, man, you just, it ain't really like that, man. Hey, man, you got to remember that. Remember that symbol there, man. Did you forget what that is? Did you forget what the motto is? Off to a better age. What is a better age? You see mugs just, positioning themselves. You heard what he said, right? This individual that was in there talking. He said that they work to perpetuate the position, to keep Africa in the condition. See, a lot of times, those from outside of the continent, we see and we say things just like people who come from other nations who come here and think that it's sweet, but we be trying to tell them the game ain't sweet. It's just from your position and what you're understanding, your lack their understanding of the political, of how this intertwines and works. Same thing we see in here, right? And so he said it's vital to all other nations' existence to keep it in that condition. All the education teaching is geared towards the undeveloping, to keep it at its standstill. It reminds me of a brother that wrote a book, How Europe Undeveloped Africa. Right? I think we got some on that, brother, don't we? I know we're gonna go into the whole story of that though, but Walter Rodney. Anybody ever seen that book? I'll show you the book. Right? How Europe Undeveloped Africa, right, by Walter Rodney. Brother did a lot of work, got himself, matter of fact, I think he got himself kicked up out of Jamaica, where he couldn't go back, and he ended up going to Africa, doing some things, and then something mysteriously happened to him that his car exploded. And he wrote about, he went to the schools of London and things like that, so he kind of knew what he was talking about from that perspective. But then you hear, this is 2021, and you heard the individual sitting at that podium saying the things he said, right? Right? And so he said, no matter which nation befriends Africa, it's the same modus operandi. China over there, it was your friend and helping you to develop. But he said they all in cahoots. Because why? What does the image tell you? Right? What does that image tell you? Right? So for the advancement of the nation to be prosperous and cheap, they have to keep it at that level, never to let it rise. Right? He said, now you hear him try to be positive and say, well, it's not really a death sentence. It's just a game. Somebody, I guess for women could be in a relationship you don't want to be in no more. Brothers, it's a game you play that you want to play no more. But they told you you're going to like it and you're going to learn to like it. You're going to like it and you're going to learn to like it. And so said if it changes, then all the other nations will suffer. And that's a big price to pay. The only reason why I'm showing today's show, man, is because there's the message. Again, there's a spiritual war going on here. And that's a question you got to ask yourself. If you heard somebody who's sitting there in the institutions teaching students, as I gave you the information as to what type of students and ones who are going to be having an effect, setting up the social standards, globally. And he's sitting here and he's saying this. Then you have a lot of our people who are sitting here talking about, wait, man, we're going back to the continent. We're going back to the motherland. Then you better understand this too, right? And then you take in your children and women, but this is not to scare. This is just, again, this is news. This is out here. So, but we bring the information over here. You heard what was said. If you want to hear it again, go back and listen to the video. But he said, if you did think about changing, he's sure that the West wasn't going to allow it to happen. You know what I'm saying? He talks about economic hitmen and how they go in there and undermine the country and keep it in the way that they do, right? And the so-called developed nations get subsidized, but the countries that are impoverished or the called third world don't get none. So he said aid, when they give countries aid, it's really just really putting you in debt for something you can't get out of. So then here we as, you know, black Americans are feeling the pinch by other nations coming here to do what? To pinch us. So again, he's talking about how that institution that he teaches, they're the producer of ideology. He said the academia and the institutions of the, you know, that teach this ideology are complicit in the scheme to the program with the world's to its objective. See, like that symbol, that's the world objective, right? The imposition of a global agenda. So the question becomes, now that you see that, what do you think? You know, it's a question you got to ask yourself. What do you think now? Well, let's take a break and we'll be up out of here. All right, I want to thank each and every one of you for participating, clicking on that video. Once again, this is the most hated show in the black corner of YouTube. I'm your host, Mr. Blows Your Minds, and hopefully I can keep doing this until I can get my situation better, to where I can come back live. Again, I have to try to work some way out to get that done. So until then, to the next show, y'all. You know how we do it over here. Until the next show.